Hello, my name is Nicole Morris, and today we're going to be talking about Jeffrey Dahmer. This is a illustrative biography webinar replay for class 615. I'm an honorary student here at the University of Arizona's Global Campus, Professor Peggy Morrison. Let's begin. On the first slide, we have the introduction. Jeffrey Dahmer was known as a notorious serial killer and cannibal. The theory in question behind Dahmer's killings were due to his maladjusted personality traits that developed from a young age. These include, but are not limited to, borderline, schizotypal, social anxiety, necrophilia, and psychotic disorders. However, there are many human beings that felt unjust cruelties that stemmed from their traumatic childhoods that did not grow up to become serial killers, and surely not cannibals. So let's move to slide 2. Freeman, 2021, affirms that Jeffrey Dahmer is responsible for the killings of 17 men, including teenage boys. Technology was not prominent in the late 70s, as we see in today's modern era. Therefore, Dahmer was not properly placed on any sexual predator registry, and information about his crimes did not spread quickly enough, and thus going under the radar. My thesis is, in the duration of this webinar biography, knowledge will be ascertained on the personality traits of Jeffrey Dahmer's personality that contributed to the theoretical disposition as to why he was a cannibal and mass murderer, such as adjustment, culture, and his biological frameworks. Slide 3, we have the understanding how Jeffrey Dahmer's personality traits formulated. We see an image of him passed out and drunk. Harper 2016 affirms that studies show that the neuropathology of alcoholism causes damages within the brain substructures. It is known that Jeffrey started drinking in his adolescence, and he was a heavy drinker. He was an alcoholic. So it is quite possible that his drinking messed up his mind's proper stages of development while it was still developing. Slide 4, we're looking further into the adjustment and adaptation period in Jeffrey Dahmer's life. Jeffrey Dahmer was significantly maladjusted mentally, which could have been caused by all the traumatic events that took place in his life, leading to cognitive chemical imbalances, construing his cognitive functioning, and leading to his ill-regarded behaviorisms. In the early stages, Dahmer was exhibiting distressing signs of abnormal development, decapitating animals, and experimenting on their carcasses. James 2022 confirms much of his odd thinking and behaviors could have been highly influenced by his parents. There are a plethora of maladjustments and adaptations that contributed to Jeffrey's psychosis and his maladaptive behaviors. Looking at slide 5, adjustment and adaptation continued. Jeffrey Dahmer was an oddball in school, which led to isolation and the subjugation of elongated periods of bullying. His father introduced Jeffrey to chemicals, experimentations, and taxidermy of the many different species of animals, which they found on the road. They were already dead. Adaptation. self-induced isolation to keep his mind occupied from the lack occupied his mind because he wasn't experiencing healthy social interactions. Collinger 2019 surmises an individual's way of coping with the world is depicted by the absorption of their environment, which is to adapt to their surroundings. Driving forces for personality traits in human dynamics are caused by environmental surroundings. On this slide, we see a blacked out person in an array of high school students. This was Jeffrey Dahmer. He was a boy who could not adjust nor adapt to his social norms and his environment. It actually became a symbol of his wasted youth, the boy who just didn't belong. Slide 7, we're going to look into the cognition of Jeffrey Dahmer. Interestingly, considering all the personality traits that contributed to Jeffrey Dahmer's overall persona, he was considered a sane individual. And what that just means is he was clearly aware of what he was doing. Adaptation 2022 affirms amongst the psychological community, it remains uncertain why some people are driven to kill, let alone become cannibals. In the case of determinism and development mentally, fMRIs could prove to be exceedingly beneficial when researching various spectrums of neurocognitions and serial killers. Cognition continued. Collinger 2019 surmises that emotional regulation plays key to the development of human personality and traits. Concerning cognition, Jeffrey Dahmer was sexually aroused by the horrendous acts of killing, both emotional, cerebral, and intellectually. However, considering all the elements that interfered Jeffrey Dahmer's mental cognition from a psychological standpoint, he was psychotically insane due to the severe chemical imbalances altered his mindset. Normal humans do not kill or eat people. So even though the jurisdiction ruled him sane, there's a lot of psychological evidence that can say otherwise. Neural anatomy clearly shows cognition variance in fMRIs. Below we see a picture of normal psychopath, derived murderer, and a non-derived murderer, meaning the ones that suppress their feelings and one that have already completed the acts of murdering. So there's clear differences biologically that can be seen cognitively in the cognition neurotransmitters because they light up differently in normal versus killer psychopathic brain scans in an fMRI. Divulging into his culture, Jeffrey's father actually researched on his own and wrote a book. Dahmer 2021 surmises and explores every facet of Jeffrey's life as to why his son turned into a killer, even researching his son's psychosis. Dahmer's parents were devout believers in the Lutheran fundamentalism and highly conservative, disapproving of his homosexuality. Dahmer was attracted to men of different ethnicities that ranged from African American, Latinos, Native Americans, and Asian descent. Culture continued. Collinger, 2019, affirms that religion plays many factorizations in individuals' personality traits, such as positive psychological stages of development. Considering the shame and disapproval from his parents might have been a motivational factor paired with curiosity stemmed from early teaching of his father that fueled his murderous tendencies. Jeffrey Dahmer hid the fact that he was a homosexual from his family and the fact that he enjoyed interracial sexual activities. Considering that fact, both levels of entanglement were highly grimaced upon, especially in the 70s. The LGBTQ A+ community cultures and those of diversity had no equality. Therefore, Dahmer felt that he had to keep his feelings about his homosexuality undisclosed. On this slide, we see Jeffrey Dahmer's surrounding culture, which appears to be a little bit isolated to begin with. His family, and that is it. Looking into the biology, Jeffrey Dahmer is extremely complex, as there is a multitude of factorizations and theories to analyze and further research. Collinger, 2019, affirms Freud's theory regarding maladjusted people's impulses is because they become stuck in their biological primitive nature to the point the person in question can no longer regulate nor interfere any other way. Considering this speculative theory, Jeffrey Dahmer's inner shame led to lawlessness as he sought to meet his sexual desires that manifested in self-hatred and that of others, as he was unaccepted by his culture, surroundings, environment, community, and, especially by his own parents. Children just want to be accepted for who they are, and when they have to hide who they are, it becomes harbored by guilt and inner shame. Biology continued. It's known that Jeffrey's mother took pharmaceuticals for the duration of her pregnancy with Dahmer. Little was known at the time, in the late 50s, what they would do to the neonatal development. So doctors allowed her to continue taking her pharmaceuticals without even knowing, it could have been a big contribution to how Jeffrey Dahmer's brain chemistry ended up the way that it was. Brennan, 2019, surmises that psychoactive drugs can have significant brain development impacts on neonatal neurotransmitters inside the brain, such as functioning chemical levels that modulate the brain receptors. His father teaching him at such a young age experimental experimentations on roadkill could have contributed also to his maladjustment and his chemical brain imbalances. Jeffrey Dahmer and his biological beginnings. Lacy, 2015, surmises antisocial personality disorder is blatant disregard for others in animals that is often exhibited as impulsive. Symptoms of this disorder can be exhibited in early childhood. Jeffrey's dad may also experience some form of neurotic behaviorisms due to the fact that he was exposing his child at a very young age to the biology of deceased animals in a perverse, curious mannerism. My conclusion is that there are many theories and concepts that need to be properly researched in order to ascertain the personality traits properly of Jeffrey Dahmer. In this illustrated webinar, Biography, Jeffrey Dahmer's Adjustment and Adaptation, Cognition, Culture, and Biology makeup were examined to gain deeper knowledge as to why he became a sexualized cannibal who murdered males. Jeffrey Dahmer's personality traits are exceedingly complex, as only less than 1% of the population has conducted acts of cannibalism, so it cannot be properly researched and analyzed. An fMRI should have been conducted on Jeffrey Dahmer's brain to further analyze his brain chemistry and his substructures. Conclusion continued. People lie, and from ascertaining much research, it has been gathered and said by many of the families of many notorious serial killers, coming from the families, that they cannot understand why their son or daughter turned out the way they did, because they were raised in such a wonderful family home environment. But we can often take the words of family members because everybody presents a facade to other people how they really are, and behind closed doors you never really know what Jeffrey Dahmer's culture and environment and surroundings were really like. Understanding all of these significant notions, researchers use to psychoanalyze serial killers such as Jeffrey Dahmer, becomes exceedingly clear that the determinisms are proceedingly difficult to understand. However, there is no argument that Jeffrey Dahmer was extremely maladjusted neuropathically. Thank you for watching my illustrative webinar biography. I hope you all have a wonderful day. I wanted to pay my respects to the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer that took place between 1978 and 1991. The cold, callous killer did not have any right, regardless of his neurocognition, personality traits, or if he was traumatized when he was a childhood. He had no right, just like nobody else has any right, to take the life of another human being. So I hope they're resting in peace. And this concludes my slideshow illustrated webinar biography. Thank you.